Cedar sign up. Shifty work into the box. And across. It's in. Oh, it's Loho. It's a dream return.
Welcome to Casual FC, an Angel City preview pod. I'm your host, Mario Salazar, with my Monday morning merch-wearing co-host, Angela Morales.
The funny thing is that at my work, we have a Monday morning meeting. Tomorrow, I will make sure to wear merch so I can be a merch-wearing Monday morning meeting attendee.
There you go. Today, we are going to talk to and get to know one of our supporters groups who make up the heart and soul of La Fortaleza in the north end of the stadium. And today, our special guest is Heather from the supporters group Angel City Valkyries. Welcome, Heather. Woo!
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thanks for being here.
It's been really fun doing all of these interviews with all the supporters groups, so we're really excited to have everyone here. And it's just been fun getting to know everybody on such a more kind of personal level, and hopefully it comes through. First question that we have on our script is just go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Heather Borjon. I am currently serving as president of the Valkyries. We've been around since July 2020, so pretty much right after the team got announced. And it's been a fun ride for the last, 3.5 years now.
Nice.
It's so exciting.
And the Valkyries, I know something we might have to put in a social post or something like that, but I know a lot of the supporters groups are formed also because of geographic areas. The Relentless is a lot more in the IE. Would you consider yourself more south or into Orange County, or is that me just making something up?
We're pretty spread out. We have a good chunk of us actually towards the South Bay area. My husband and I we're out in the IE. I live in Elsinore, but we do have members in Orange County. We just lost our Bay Area member to CFC. No, so we knew it was going to happen, and we're really happy for her to have a team closer to home. But yeah, we have members all over the place. We even have a member out in Philadelphia because she's a huge Kristen Press fan. We were founded based on being U.S. soccer supporters originally, so that's how we gathered up a lot of our members, and I think that's why we're so spread out with our group, just because a lot of us came together because we love international soccer.
Nice. That leads straight into the next question.
That's perfect.
Which was, how did you come to the sport? Did you play when you were younger, or were you just purely a fan about it? I know you're a big part of the U.S. national team support, so yeah, how did you come from it from how long ago?
So I never played soccer in my life. I wanted to when I was younger. I was really into trying different sports, and so I played through my school. I played basketball. I was terrible at it. And then my first sport I actually played was softball, and was okay, but I did have fun. So I played softball for 4 years through middle school, and when it came time to try out to do soccer or go join AYSO, my mom's like, "You're doing too much," because I also was in Girl Scouts. We did volleyball. So my mom didn't want to stretch me too thin. So soccer just never happened. My first soccer game was, I think, August 2008. My friend was a huge David Beckham fan, and he had just come to the Galaxy. So we had a deal. She would come to a baseball game with me, and then I would go to a soccer game with her. And I had so much fun at the soccer game. I was like, I want to do this again. This is a rivalry match between Galaxy and Chivas. And
Wow.
I think it was like a 2-2 tie, but like somebody's shirt got ripped, and it was crazy. And I was like, this is so much fun. I don't know why more people don't do this. And so I actually was tutoring for someone who had Galaxy season tickets, and she hurt her knee, and the Galaxy were not great in 2008. So she just gave me her ticket. So then I got even closer to the action, and it just sucked me in. We went to about half the season in 2009. And then by 2010, we had season tickets. And so I tried following a women's team too, because I was also just getting into women's sports. Like I'd watch women's softball a little bit on TV, but the soul folded right after that. I just followed the U.S. national team. And so following through the 2012 Olympics, and then eventually getting to go to my first game after that, I had a lot of fun. We got to go to an open practice and meet the team. I
Wow,
have a
that's
really
so
old picture with
cool.
Abby Wambach from then. And I just, the community around soccer just was amazing. So that just led me into following the national teams, both men's and women's, and having fun. And I think the community around soccer is just what makes it unique and so engaging.
Oh, I think that's awesome. And yeah, it's always fun to, if you're not already playing the sport or like already into it, when someone brings you in and basically gives you like the taste, your dealer basically gives you the little taste and says, hey, this is fun. Keep coming. It'll be great.
My friend took me to a game to season ticket pipeline is so linear. Like so many people we've talked to, like I went to my first women's national team game in 2018 or 19, something like that. And just because like my schedule never synced up, and then all of a sudden I was like, how do I do more of this? And then Angel City was announced like a millisecond later, and I was like, perfect, there we go. And it was just so okay. I did this one thing, and now I have to do it. I have to commit, and it's so much fun to see how that happens throughout different sports as well, or like men's to women's and the transition there. Also, thank you for being another person who never played soccer because I didn't.
I know people always ask me like,
other sport.
how did this happen? And I was like, I don't know. I just had really fun, or a lot of fun. And
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened. This was the one sport I enjoyed being a spectator and not playing.
I hate running. So
Yeah, same.
And it's funny because like I only played, I think, 2 seasons of volleyball in like 5th grade and like 7th grade, and then ended up coaching it for a hot minute. But I never got into playing soccer. Like I've run drills with my roommate's son, and like my husband was playing for a little bit. So I would kick balls at him. I love actually do playing foot golf, but there's not a whole lot of skill. I can just kick the ball really far.
I think that's one of the things about soccer too, where like the naysayers or the people that are like, oh, it's boring, it's low scoring, it's like, no, football's also low scoring, it's made up points, it's not 1 point, it's 7.
Exact conversation with one of my coworkers after the Super Bowl. He's like, I don't get it, like soccer's 2-2, and I was like, what was the final score of the Super Bowl? And he tells me, I was like, so 4 to 2.5, and he was like, oh, and I was like, it's all pretend.
It's all fun. But I think the great thing about what some of the experiences that we've had, and the great thing that Angel City has done, is the game day atmosphere. I think that's the thing that's going to pull in casual fans, right? People that just want to come to do something in LA, and they come to this match, and then you get sucked in. And a lot of times that's just the main way. If you had a bad time in the stands at any game, you're just going to be like, yeah, not for me. I'm not going to come back. But I think that's the main key to grab all those new fans and how to grow the sport.
That's the one thing, like across, I think, all games, like even when the play on the field hasn't been the best, or your team's just not connecting that day, like usually the experience around the game and like the atmosphere within the stadium, like it's what makes people come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
you guys are such a huge part of it, being in La Fortaleza, like all the supporters that are in that. And then the fact that the supporters are spread all over the stadium too. You don't have to be in a supporters group to be there, or you don't have to be there to be in a group. Like they're everywhere, and it's just the fandom and everything. So with that, you did mention a lot of you started with the national team. How did Valkyries form and actually gel into the Angel City supporters?
So we have a leftover group chat. It's not as active as it was a few years back. We had a WhatsApp chat from France. So my husband and I went for our honeymoon, and so waited for USA to fans to connect. We had this WhatsApp to connect when we were in the city. So we'd meet up and kick a ball around the Eiffel Tower. And so we kept that chat going through the pandemic, because there were people who were trying to go to Tokyo for the Olympics. Obviously didn't happen in 2020. So
Plans changed.
A good chunk of people were like Southern California based in that chat. And so when Angel City was announced at the end of the 2020 Challenge Cup, we were all hyped. And Stephanie, who ended up becoming our first president, was like, we should start our own supporter group for them. And I was like, yeah, I could do that. And like, it was the pandemic, we're all bored. And I'm like, we could start a supporter group. Mind you, like, this is how I started AO chapter 2, like a few years before this. I was talking to my husband about it. I'm like, we should do this. This sounds like a lot of fun. There's so many people in LA that's been just wanting a women's team for forever. Like, we see them all show up for U.S. women's national team games. We started the chat going, and I let people know I knew were local supporters of women's soccer, and started rounding them up. And again, most of them were people that I either met in France or hung out with while we were there for the Women's World Cup. So it was really cool because we also met fans from other teams, not just USA. And so we just put the pieces together and started rolling.
That's fantastic. So when it comes to Valkyrie specific, if let's say I'm just like a random stranger, I know nothing about you guys, and I show up at a tailgate and I'm like, what are you about? What's your elevator pitch to get them hooked?
We're just here to have fun and watch soccer and tailgate. Obviously, we did get loud in the stands too, but we were really focused on just bringing that fun atmosphere and community that we all fell in love with to LA. Not that LA wouldn't already have that, but like our own brand of it as well.
That's fantastic.
A lot of the common thread with all the groups is bringing that support, that LA support in the flavor that it needed to be for women's soccer, right? Like the brand or the flavor that the men's support has, or even the national team support, is not exactly, what was going to work in LA. Like, you can't copy paste support. That's not a thing. Like, support has to come from the members, the kind of organically. And I think that's been a common thing with all the groups, which I'm really glad to hear, is that everybody had a want to create their own thing and create that thing that's very special and unique to LA and to Angel City, and not the copy paste of XYZ, right?
Yeah, and I think what's really cool with like just the LA support is like we do have a rich supporter culture between two MLS teams. Now we have MLS Pro teams, there's USL teams. And so I feel like even for the people who came with supporter background, like we took the best parts of our experiences and threw that all in together. And I don't see, not everyone's going to get along every single time, and we'll have our differences, but it doesn't have the toxicity that I've seen within the men's game as much. And so I think it's meshed into something like really cool and beautiful, like on game days.
Yeah, it's so like fluid in that sense of, like you said, not everybody's different. Everybody's going to have their days, but there's such this communal effort to put forth the best version of the supporter culture, because that's so much of why I don't like going to men's games, is because I'm just like, I just want to chill, take a deep breath. Like, I want to come and have fun after work or like on the weekend. And that's exactly what Angel City is for me. Do I love the game? Am I sitting there screaming my head off and having a hard time trying not to loudly heckle a referee? Yes. But it doesn't feel as like tumultuous in that undercurrent of energy. It's more joyful. And I feel like that's the difference, is that we're all just so freaking happy to be there, and like happy to be amongst friends. Because like my girlfriend and I were out for a friend's birthday last night, and this one guy's, yeah, we started talking about sports somehow. He's like, yeah, I really need to get it to an Angel City game. And I was like, oh, Angel City, what do you know about them? Like, instantly we were just drawing him in. He's, I just wish I like had a way to get to know more about the team, as I'm digging through my bag, pulling out podcast stickers. Here you go. This is what we do. But it's every time you're walking around the city or outlying cities wearing Angel City merch or your supporter group merch, and people see it, it's, I know you. I know the kind of person you are in the best way. And I just think it's so important. And it's so cool that we have so many different flavors of that same energy.
Yeah, I was at a Galaxy preseason game a couple of weeks ago, and one of the security people walked by and they're like, oh, you're from the Valkyries, right? I'm like, yeah. And I feel bad because I did not recognize her. So she's listening. I'm so sorry. She knew my name. She knew my name. But she had sunglasses on and I think a beanie. So it was kind of hard to place her. But yeah, it was just super cool that, hey, like we still connect, like even outside of Angel City games. I used to have an Angel City lanyard that I wore to work. And it was funny because more of the men, like the guys who work with our soccer teams at our school sites, were like, oh, you're an Angel City fan. I was like, yeah, I capoed for them and go to as many games as I can. And they're like, that's so cool. And so trying to get some of them out to the games. I'm like, come on, support, let's go.
Totally.
You can do it.
So
Come on.
you,
It's easy.
yeah,
It's easy. Come on.
you talked a lot about doing a lot for the women's national team and the men's national team and traveling to see them play other places. We've been asking everyone, like, what's your favorite women's soccer memory pre-Angel City? We've now expanded it to like soccer in general because everybody has a different background. But if you can narrow it down to like top three,
Okay,
what,
I'm glad you
like
said top
pre-Angel
three because
City?
I have three. So the earliest best moment is I did meet my husband at a U.S. women's national team game. It was the 2015 send-off against Mexico. And so I met the person who's spending the rest of my life with at that game. And it was just by accident. He was helping another American Outlaws chapter set up because he was there on his own. And then for whatever reason, they had us loading in at, it's now Dignity, but they had us loading in at a completely opposite corner than where our tailgate was. So my friend from Houston actually drove her car over. And so she parked it outside while she was loading in her banner. And then my friends and I were getting in the car with her. And so we saw him by himself and we're like, hey, you want to come with us? And so I was planning on getting in the back of the SUV because like my friend had some drinks back there for me. And he was being a gentleman, like, oh, you can sit with your friends. And I was like, oh. So one of our first pictures together is him in the trunk of this car. And that was a running joke about how I met my husband by throwing him in the back of a car. And another top moment, I didn't actually watch the game or have a whole lot of experience, but there was a women's national team game, Tournament of Nations game on our wedding day. And I forget like who they were playing, but I just remember while everyone was at cocktail hour, like people were watching the game on their phones and they were cheering and we had a fun soccer wedding. And then, of course, the 2019 World Cup final, because that was our honeymoon. So women's soccer has just been built into our relationship along the way. So it's been fun. And so that was also my first time out of the country. And so just experience, I think we went to every game except for the first one because school wasn't out yet. So I had to wait for school to end. And then I literally dropped off my keys and we went to LAX. And we spent pretty much all day Saturday flying out there. And then was at the game against Chile in Paris the next morning. It was crazy.
Wow, that's so cool. Just genuinely so cool. So we have your three pre-Angel City favorites. What has been your favorite memory with Angel City? Like at any point of what Angel City is and has been and will be.
This was really hard. So I'm glad you guys like sent me the questions ahead of time because I could think of like at least three, if not more, even in 2 years. But I want to say just like that first home opener at Now BMO. And everything was just so crazy leading into that game. Like we were all really busy. It was a Friday night and that stadium was packed. And I remember like they had Running with the Angels, like the ladies performing on the field and just the way the stadium set up. Like I couldn't hear anything from them. Julie Foudy was like next to me and you're like, what was that? Just because all the sound is going the other direction. But just hearing like when we first kicked off and the crowd erupt, like that was the coolest moment. Being in the Capo stand, getting to experience that. I've had like similar experiences in the men's game. Like I was actually on the field when the San Jose Earthquakes played their first game at PayPal Park and in the stadium. And that was, I think Angel City blew that moment out of the water because like we just wanted a women's team for so long in Southern California, like since the Soul went away. And I think all of that just led up to that moment. And you could feel it in the energy. And like it hasn't stopped. That was just the beginning. And like you could see it come back for games. Everyone's hyped, everyone's happy, and everyone's here to support women's soccer and just see the sport continue to flourish.
Yeah. I think I was in tears for at least the first 10 minutes of the game. Like it was just overwhelming, wonderful, everything. Yeah. I'm the ultimate crier, as most people who have listened to any episode of this podcast have heard. I will get emotional the more I talk about women's sports. We were joking with Kat when we did her interview. Oh, are we both going to cry? And then we did.
I remember seeing Kat like multiple times and she was just like that day.
Yeah.
And even that, like just seeing everything come together. And like that first Challenge Cup game in Fullerton, like obviously we're like, why are we playing in Fullerton? Why are we playing in our stadium? But it's honestly a good play. It was a fun like warm up, and like as the supporters, it was like, oh, we have a game to cheer during too.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those. It was a good practice for us. And Natalie Portman came out and was like straight up cheering. And I remember there was a photographer for NWSL in Fullerton that kept walking in front of our capos. And so I was like being capo bodyguard because I wasn't like stepping in at the time. And I finally got in the guy's face. I'm like, dude, you can't walk here. Like we use these table runners to create like a mini tifo the first game. And so I was blocking it off, and this guy kept going under it. And he's, I'm here to promote you. And I was like, I'm looking up at a full section, and I straight up told him, like, we don't need you. We did this ourselves. And I remember telling Austin from the front office later, he was like, okay, we'll handle it. Like and then I found out later he was the guy was from NWSL, and I was like, oh shit. But still, it was one of those moments where, yo, like we've done something amazing here, and y'all are just finding out about it, like at the league level.
Yeah, and you all made your mark. It was there too, but we've mentioned before that we're not like in the supporter section, so we're not in the drums and chants and flags and stuff. But Angel City, the supporters and everything, just from day one left their mark. Like we jumped up to the conversation of the best supporters in the league being the established Thorns and Angel City. It's like they're like automatically brand new kid on the block, but we're at the top is in terms of like fan support, in terms of potential on the field, in terms of everything. Is just, look, we're shooting our shot high. And I think the supporters really brought it, because all of a sudden I just remember talking to people at work trying to get them to be like, there's a team. Like I work in Crenshaw. I literally work down the expo line. Like I can take the expo line to the games midweek and it's 3 stops away. And I'm like, let's just get on the train and let's go. But the one thing that they all do here is about the game day atmosphere and the supporters and the drums and chants and stuff. And I'm like, they're badass, and you need to go to a game. You need to go see them.
My first NWSL game was actually up in Portland. And so it was a crazy trip because I was living in the Bay Area at the time. So like we went to a Timbers versus Earthquake game on Saturday night. And then the next morning it was like Timbers 2 versus Sac Republic. So we went way out of Portland to go to that game. Came back into town Sunday night for the Thorns. It was their season opener, and it was the first game against Orlando Pride. And that was the Pride's first game and Alex Morgan's like return. And so just feeling that atmosphere around women's soccer, I'm like, I need to be a part of this. And so I kind of like loosely followed the Thorns just because that was the first game I went to. But I remember like watching their capos and their supporter section. I was like, they go just as hard for the men as they do the women. And so
the Riveters
in my mind,
no joke.
when we were getting this all started, I'm like, that's what I want to see. I want to see people going just as hard for the women's team, if not harder, than they do for their men's team. And I 100% think we're there. And it was cool because during the NWSL final game, I got to see that same capo. Like I remember meeting her and fangirling over her. I think her name's Sunday. And she's just a really cool person. And so I told the story about, I'm like, you were my bar of like what we wanted our supporter section. And it was really cool to have that like kind of full circle moment with another capo and like talking to other supporters. So like I think I don't want to say like we've surpassed Portland, but I definitely think like we have that similar, like going just as hard for the women's team as the men's team. And like we've also added in our own flavor because we're not holding ourselves to that. Like we're going beyond and making it our own.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, every supporter group took every bit of knowledge they had of supporter culture from across the game and took all the good part and said, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's improve on what's already there. And that's, I think, the biggest difference is that it's just good. That's it. Yeah, we all, like, whenever any group pulls out, like, a bunch of yellow or red cards, it's my favorite thing. We both sit across, like, we're on the opposite end. To get to see all the way up the entire supporter section, you just see, like, red cards being pulled out or yellow cards, or whenever there's a dramatic action on the pitch, you see the entirety of La Fortaleza react, and it's so moving because it's just this like collective agreement of I am a ride or die for this team. Like, we all have different belief sets. We all come from different backgrounds, but this team is our collective common denominator.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like that's what centers all 6 supporter groups and anyone who comes into La Fortaleza is that we're here for the team. We're here for the players on the field. And so whether we win, lose, tie, like we're here for you. Obviously, it's more fun when we win, but it's still going to be a party no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
The game against Portland, that last one of the season,
Ooh.
it was a little traumatic in the beginning of the game for me because it was really hot that day and I had to spend some time with the medical team and
no.
ate grape Gatorade and I actually drank it to try and like just get my energy back up. And like the front office was really cool with helping me because there's a lot going on that day, obviously. And so after about 20 minutes, I got put in a seat that was actually in the shade. But like the game itself was amazing and ruining Portland's day was a lot of fun because I'm sometimes petty like that. So after having like a weird like moment, I did get to make my 7th graders jealous because I got to meet Effie Trinket and they were reading Hunger Games at the time. So I try not to fangirl over the celebrities, but that was one where I was like, oh my gosh, my students are reading like this book right now. But yeah, so like just, I guess, ruining Portland's day because they were trying to get the shield and then not.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
We talked about that game like in the preview up for the Portland game. I was like, we have to score as many goals as possible. We need to make Bella Bixby regret that back heel, like everything. And then it just kept happening. And I was like, oh my God, am I a witch? Do I see the future? Is this the best thing that's ever happened to me?
I didn't know what to expect going into that game because Portland had been so dominant. Like,
yeah,
them and San Diego. So I was like, oh gosh, like this could be really bad. And then our girls understood the assignment and just knocked their socks off. It was great.
Yeah, that was one of the few games where like I did spend half the game on my phone, but that was only because I was like keeping track of all the other scores and texting Angela and being like, all right. And because I went through this whole thing about permutations and if this happens, this happens. If that happens, this happens. Like every time something changed, I was like, okay, now we're here. We need this. We need that. But that was such an exciting roller coaster of a game, and especially it just kept going up, and it just was way better than our final game the year before.
Yes.
Oh, 100%. And like I know I was trying to like post to stories, and it got to the point where I had to text one of my people who weren't even at the game to start reposting because we were just getting tagged left and right on Instagram. So I couldn't post anything natively from my phone. Because I never got back in the Capo stand that game, but I was able to follow along with what was going on in the rest of the league. We're like, we're in, we're not, we're in. Crystal, who was also helping in social media, I'm like, can you like repost this stuff? Because nothing was connecting just because everybody was freaking out.
Yeah.
So it was such a fun and unique experience. And I was like, oh, this is what I live for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question for you in your memory of the first game and the fact that you were in the Capo stand for the first game. Everybody's experience of that game, it's wonderful to hear the different perspectives, especially because people were spread all over the stadium. And when we were talking to Kat, she was mentioning how the first goal went in, and then immediately when the second goal went in, she basically jumped on Austin and Austin was like able to hold her. But what was your experience like on that first game? Because I know that Capo's, because your back is facing the field, you don't always see what's happening, right? Like you're reacting to everybody else that's facing the field and you're like directing. So how did that first game actually go for you? Or were you able to experience all those moments by turning around, or you had the experience and you were half turned?
Yeah, I don't remember much about the play on the field. Like obviously, like I could see where this Capo stand I'm usually in, I can see the one screen off to the side, but I'm not paying attention to that all the time because I'm trying to make sure that I'm watching the count for whatever chant we're on because we use like a number system, and then the center Capo stand is like the Capo DJ with that. So they're like throwing up the number signs. We're trying to confirm that we heard it or we saw like the signals. And then I know we were still kind of working out some of the signals at the time. So that's an extra point of having to Capo in that stadium when you have 3 capo stands, because like I've capoed 4 USA games and my co-capo is next to me. So I don't have to like signal to them as much. So it is a unique experience capoing here. And I will tell you, like, when the other team scores, because there's not the reaction to it, I won't know until 10 minutes later sometimes. Because I remember, like, one time I was like, oh, when did that happen? So, yeah. But the cool thing is, like, there's certain nuances, like, you notice because you're facing the crowd. So I know one of our chants, like, the drummers start to sway back and forth. And, like, we're doing it too. But it's just kind of, that was always my favorite part, is watching the drummers just go back and forth and sync while they're drumming. And then when we have the phones out doing the lights, like I get to see all of that, where like the supporter section, like when you're facing the field, you don't always get to see those things.
Mm-hmm.
So it just creates like this, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. Because I get the same experience you do when you're not sitting in the section. And then of course, all the sound is coming at me and going behind me. So I'm always like, how do I sound on the, I hate hearing my own voice. I was terrible as a Zoom teacher because I never wanted to edit anything I recorded because I'm like, I'm not listening to it. Here, go. But I was always like, oh, how can they hear me okay? Because we were using megaphones a lot the first season and laid off last season. And so I don't know how well that sound actually carried. But yeah, I mean, it's just seeing those little details like of the crowd, seeing everybody's faces and how excited they were. I think for me, that was kind of like the coolest moment. And then one of the Mosaic photographer got a really cool picture of me at the end of the game handing off my megaphone to Dee Dee after we won. And that was the first time we did the call back, like the ACFC in that stadium.
Yeah.
And that's still one of my favorite pictures from that game. Because like, it's just like that, yeah, we did this. This is amazing. Because you always hear about the interviews from the players. They're like, yeah, no, I could hear the fans. The fans are what drove me on. And I feel like that moment really encapsulated like those sentiments of we're in this together. Like, we got this.
Yeah, I was wondering how the megaphone down to the players started. So thank you for answering an unknown question.
I think all of these memories and everything has been really awesome. And thank you, Heather, for lending us your time to talk about the Valkyries and talk about just the amazing things that the Fortaleza has been doing. Before we sign off, how can people find out more about Valkyries? And is there anything else you wanted to promo, things that are coming up? Now that we have the schedule, first day tailgates probably already being planned out.
Yeah, you can follow us at AC_Valkyries on pretty much every social media platform. And so we'll post what's going on with our group there. We're in the process of planning our tailgate. So last year we started doing theme tailgates based on our opponents. And so we still need to work out that schedule. Unfortunately, we're only going to have 7 tailgates because we got a lot of weekday games this year. But feel free to swing by. They're open for everyone. Away supporters are always welcome. I know we have fans from Bay FC joining us for the home opener. So we're usually in the corner near, kind of nestled between Relentless Ladies and Mosaic. So come stop by, grab a beer with us or some food, and we'd love to have you join us. And I can't wait for the season to start.
I've got goosebumps. We're just about a month away, and yeah, it's been that I believe everybody who's even remotely a fan and just wants to go to those games is just biting at like their tickets to be like, okay, when is March coming? Come on, March can't come faster.
We have that game next weekend.
Yeah,
so
Golchella. Yeah, it's a little too far for me, and family. But I do really wish and that's going to be an interesting game too because it is with Bay, and then we play Bay as our first game, so it'll be a good preview match.
And they're playing on Tuesday night before that. So actually, this coming Tuesday. So I'm bummed they're not streaming it because I want to see what they do.
Yeah,
I know.
When they play Wave and they play us, so I'm excited to go out there. I wanted to make sure, so I was like, oh, I'm skipping the messy game to be here, and then I realized the messy game for Galaxy is like the next day. So it took away my like, haha, Woso over Broso moment, but I'm so hyped to go out there and see women's soccer again. We do have the Women's Gold Cup going on. So shout out to everyone who showed up for those games yesterday, the triple header. It looked like so much fun. I had FOMO watching it. I was like, I should have gone. But I'm excited to get to some women's game or more U.S. women's games. It's going to be a lot of Woso over the next month or so for me. I can't wait.
That's a good problem to have, I think.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Heather, thank you so much again for joining us and taking time out of your day to hang out with us, answer a bunch of questions, and hopefully get you even more excited for the upcoming season. So, yeah, everybody, thanks for listening. And if you liked all this, go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you are listening to this outside of the big three. If you haven't already, at least, we love finding out we get more followers. You can check out casualfc.com for all of the podcast links if you need another platform to listen to them on. You can also get our merch there, send us more women's soccer podcasts, what have you. You should follow us on social media all over the place at Casual FC Pod, but primarily Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Twitter. Make sure you tell a friend about the podcast. We joke that it brings good luck, but as we've said more and more recently, we started this podcast middle of the way last season, and then we went undefeated for 11 games and made it to the playoffs. So I'm just saying that the more you share the podcast, the more good luck there is. And then if you feel so inclined, please help support the podcast by buying us a coffee. You can check out the link in all of our social bios or go to buymeacoffee.com/casualfcpod. And yeah, Heather, we'll see you at the home opener. We'll make sure to come say hi and drop off some stickers and hang out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, we can't wait.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everybody.